beginning, there was a river. The river became a road, and the road branched out to the whole world. And because the river was once a road, it was always hungry. In the land of beginnings, spirits mingled with the unborn. Benokri, the famished road. My name is Rudolf Okonkwo. Welcome to SaharaTV. Since the end of the Nigerian Biafra Civil War in 1970, in one form or the other, there is always the spirit of Biafra. The spirit became a movement when Rudolf launched the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra Masop. Because the movement used to be a spirit, it transformed over time across several landscapes, under several leaders. At one point, it was simply the Biafra of the spirit. At other moments, it was the Biafra of the mind. And then arrived Nnamdi Kanu. Watch. Because you know he's not going there to negotiate Biafra. You know that.
Of course, we know that very well.
Okay.
What will happen to him is this. Already, we know that some of them live in Abuja and Lagos axis. There is nobody that speaks for the Yoruba nation that lives in anywhere in Igbo land or in Biafra land. There is no prominent Hausa person that lives anywhere in Biafra land. What we are saying to this man and his likes is that, of course, they will underestimate us because those that have gone before us have made threats and didn't carry it out. This time it is different. If we can place the name Biafra on satellite, if we can broadcast so that the whole world can hear us every blessed day, if we are in over 70 countries around the world with over 5 million listeners, there is nothing we cannot do. This time around, things are very, very different, believe you me. Very, very different, and very soon the world will hear about it. Because the only language that people in the zoo understand is the language of violence and force. After all, that very contraption was put together by Freddy Lugard by force. That's one thing people don't understand, that Lugard killed people to bring Nigeria together. And the killing of people to disintegrate the zoo shouldn't come to anybody as a surprise. Our promise is very simple. If they fail to give us Biafra, Somalia will look like a paradise compared to what will happen to that zoo. It is a promise, it is a prayer, it is a pledge.
In the last few weeks, the spirits and the minds have mingled in the moving wavelengths of Radio Biafra. It has attracted the attention of the federal government of Nigeria, and with it, a crackdown. Joining us now to discuss Radio Biafra and its message and the implications for Nigeria are the Editorial Board Chairman of the Premium Times online newspaper, Mr. Jibrin Ibrahim. Mr. Ibrahim, welcome to SaharaTV.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. Also joining us from Nigeria is the Lagos State Publicity Secretary of the ruling All Progressive Congress, APC, Mr. Joe Igbokwe. Mr. Igbokwe, welcome to SaharaTV.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right. And from California is Dr. Oguchi Nkwocha, a Biafran activist. Dr. Oguchi, welcome to SaharaTV.
Thank you. And I'm glad to be here.
All right. Let me start with you, Mr. Ibrahim. To some extent, the Premium Times editorial was the first media editorial that first raised concerns about Radio Biafra. In that editorial, your paper titled The Menace called Radio Biafra, you argued that the radio station is not just dangerous, but you went to the extent of comparing the messages of the station to that of Boko Haram founder, Mohammed Yusuf. Could you please explain that aspect to our viewers?
Well, our view is that the content of the message on Radio Biafra is essentially hate speech. It is dangerous speech. It caricatures Nigeria. It creates a climate of suspicion, but over and above that, it organizes hatred between one group of Nigerians against the other. That type of message is very destructive of society. It could have huge implications, as we had seen in the case of Radio Milcolin in Rwanda, and that's the concern we expressed in our editorial.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Igbokwe, in an article you called Why Nnamdi Kanu's Biafra Project Must Be Stopped, you warned that there is fire on the mountain. You wrote that Radio Biafra has unleashed, and I'm quoting, unleashed an unimaginable trail load of lies and potential dangerous propaganda that has put the Igbo nation in danger. What are these lies, and how do they put the Igbo nation in danger?
You see, in 1995, I wrote 25 years after Biafra. And if you check the dates, I think it's about 20 years now. And what I did in that book is try to tell Igbo people, my people, to move on, and not to begin to suffer defeatist, syndrome all over. And 20 years after, and we begin to hear these hate speeches, from the so-called Radio Biafra, then you can begin to wonder how I feel as the author of that book. Because these people who are doing this are either in London or US, and they create enemies for our people here. They are putting our people constantly in danger. And the way I see it, this thing became almost, got out of hand after the presidential elections. Our people, it was Jonathan or nothing. And we tried to explain to them, we put statistics, there's no way 2 small zones will defeat 4 big zones because of the alliance. That there's no way 11 states, small states, will beat 25 big states. And they didn't listen. So when the result came out, our people became so angry. And if you go to websites, if you go to online publications, you see all kinds of hate speeches, calling of names. And once you do that, you put our people in Ibadan in potential danger, our people in Lagos in potential danger, Kaduna, Kano, all over Nigeria in potential danger. And you know that people travel a lot. Our people travel a lot.
Okay.
And I've in that article I have 20 reasons, but I was able to.
No, we're going to get to that, Mr. Igbokwe.
Yes.
We're going to get to that. Let me give a chance to Dr. Nkwocha to respond to 2 of you. Dr. Nkwocha.
Yes. First of all, I want to say that I am not in defense of Nnamdi Kanu or anybody. I am in defense of Biafra having a voice, having a radio. After all, BBC has a Hausa language service where people that speak Hausa, many of them in Nigeria, participate. Okay? So let me make that clear, that Biafra deserves a radio. We had a Voice of Biafra International, which was the first radio station, radio broadcast for Biafra, and it operated for almost 9 years. Now, in our broadcast, we advocated for self-determination based on having a referendum. I'm not in support of anybody calling for terrorist acts or harming other people. What characterized Voice of Biafra International is that we said, in asking for self-determination for Biafra and for Igbo people, we wage neither war nor peace with Nigeria. That we do that which is right for our people, an internationally recognized right for a people to be able to run their own state of affairs. So I defend the radio for Biafra at any time, and we had Voice of Biafra International Radio, called VOBI, and that was the paradigm for our broadcast. I have never listened to Radio Biafra now, but I have heard issues and complaints brought up to me. As far as what Mr. Igbokwe was saying about our people being in danger, I don't know whose people he's really talking about. The Igbo people have always been in danger in Nigeria from day one. The Biafra War just brought that to a head, but the Biafra War never really ended. And he talked about the elections and APC. Let me ask him, where was he when the Yoruba man in charge of Lagos threatened all Igbo people? This was on TV, this was in the whole world, that he was going to kill them if they did not vote for APC. So why is it that so-called intelligent people that write books and write articles can't even think twice before making statements like that? It was what did he write when the APC man in Lagos told Igbo people, okay, you either vote APC, I'm going to kill you. And do you know the aftermath of that? You remember the Ghana must go thing paradigm of in the 90s that drove Ghanaians away? The same thing is happening in Lagos. You've seen now, it's Igbo must go. They haven't stated it that way. So where Igbokwe is coming from, I don't know. And as far as the Jibrin Ibrahim and his editorial, I just want to ask him, who among the Nigerian people has asked for so much destruction of the other people than General Buhari himself? Remember when he lost elections? Did he not incite the people? He incited them, and they even killed Peace Corps people. Most of them were from the South and Igbo. What did his paper say about that? Today, General Buhari has been rewarded with being the president of Nigeria. So everybody forgets how he incited the people, how he told the people to vote Muslim only. Do you guys have a memory, or do you just say things?
Okay, Dr. Nkwocha, thank you so much. Let me say that when I ask questions to you, you can respond to what the other person said while you're answering my question, but I want us to move forward. I don't want us to go back and forth so much. So, Mr. Ibrahim, let me ask you. On Friday, the Nigerian National Broadcast Commission announced that it has arrested the operators of Radio Biafra and has blocked it from the airwave. But some Biafran activists, they argued that it was not the case and that many people are still listening to the radio station. And it's also online. Well, what is the latest? And do you think that the crackdown has probably accomplished the opposite, which is making the radio station more popular, and we end up sending it underground?
I think my understanding is that the first announcement that they had closed it down was not correct, because people were able to monitor it after the announcement. There has been a second announcement that it is now closed down and certain people arrested. I'm not sure about the veracity of that, because in today's world, one can always broadcast on the internet anyway, and it's not always possible for states to block all possible means of broadcasting. The broadcasting arena has become much more open, and control is much more difficult. The important thing for me, however, on this issue is that radio broadcasting in Nigeria, as in all other countries, is governed by law. You need a license to operate a radio station. If you operate one without a license, you are going outside the law, and the law should take its course, which is to close down your activities and to prosecute you for breaking the law. That's the key point about Radio Biafra. It is operating illegally. It is operating outside the ambit of law, and to that extent should not be allowed by the Nigerian state to continue its illegality. Just one word about the question, what did we do when Buhari incited people to kill? I'm not sure there's any evidence that he incited people. I think there was a commission of inquiry established by government to look at those allegations, and that commission of inquiry came out with a clear verdict that there was no evidence of incitement. And I think people should be careful of making statements that have no basis in fact.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mr. Igbokwe, I want to come to you. In your article, you made reference to a picture circulating online of Nnamdi Kanu in a bush surrounded by youths who appear to be armed. And you wrote that if we elders do not speak against this evil, posterity will never forgive us. Now, what has been the reaction to your article? And do you think that the elders of Igbo land bear any blame to the hopeless situation, or for the hopeless situation of the youths of Igbo land, which you and many people who criticize their activities identify as one of the causes of their disaffection with Nigeria?
Oh, let me tell you, I've been in Nigeria since I was born, so I have not been to any, I've never traveled like some of us do, and stayed there to throw stones. I've seen it all. I know that one of the reasons I started there is that if you consider the three major ethnic groups, our people are not the worst. Our people are not the worst. So you had the governor of, I think the governor of Ekiti State, suggesting the idea of sending his people, young people, to Aba and Onitsha to learn trade. If we are not doing very well, they cannot do that. You see, so we are not the. I said in that article that we are not the worst in Nigeria. Those who they think that they are persecuting us are not better than us. So that's by the way. The truth is that I live here. You know what? Nkwocha said something about what Kabiyesi said. Kabiyesi, it was something that was taken out of proportion. Kabiyesi, if you know Kabiyesi very well, for those of us who know Kabiyesi very well, he was just cracking a joke. And the thing was just reported the way he said it, while cracking a joke with some people. And the thing caught just like wildfire, the thing spread. And that's why I talk about defeatism attitude. Our people are not the worst in Nigeria. Our people have made substantial progress outside Igbo land. And my point is that if we all go to Igbo land today, the place may not contain us.
Okay.
And let me tell you, people talk about Hausa in BBC. Yes, we know what they broadcast. Not the kind of thing that we hear. The hate and abusive words that are likely to put Nigeria on fire. And these people are in New York. They're in UK. And they're not here.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
They are putting our people constantly in danger with what they are saying.
Okay, you will get more chance to talk about this more. Let me come to you, Dr. Nkwocha. What is for people who do not know, what is the Biafran imperative? And has the message of Radio Biafra helped or harmed that Biafran imperative?
I don't know that the message of Radio Biafra as it's being spread is helping anybody. I know that its awakening is getting people interested, but I will refer you to the message of Voice of Biafra International. The Biafran imperative is that we are a group of people that are seeking our self-determination. Now, self-determination, as you know, there's a UN resolution about that. Before that UN resolution was passed in 2007 in August, we actively sought the help of the UN and the help of anybody that could listen and say, look, we are a people, we are endangered within Nigeria as currently constituted. Our imperative is to exercise our self-determination rights, which will be confirmed by a referendum. And then we can do what we want with ourselves. This is not anything new. Just recently, Scotland went through the same process. As you know, UK supports Nigeria and fought on the side of Nigeria to keep Nigeria one and cause all these problems, that it itself allowed the Scots to hold a referendum based upon self-determination. Is it asking for too much to say that we need to do a referendum on self-determination? The previous speaker has talked about how well we are doing in Nigeria. Well, I don't know where he is. The whole point is that, well, he lives there and we live outside. But it is not so. If it was so, why would our youth be rebelling? Look, the youth are not getting any education. We used to be known for education, but now we don't. And in fact, people are talking to us and say, yeah, look, we used to be known for education. In fact, they're using derogatory terms now that all you people are petty traders. But the point is that whatever we do very well. But that we do has been suppressed by Nigeria in so many ways, and they keep suppressing it in any and all ways. To tell me that, oh, well, you're doing well here, it's not a consolation. Even if we're doing well in Nigeria, we could do much better. But the whole thing is that our security is not guaranteed in Nigeria. Our opportunities, but there's no merit which is part of what's wrong with Nigeria. Anything that the Igbo man or the Biafran can do very well. Every single step is taken by Nigeria to stop that.
Right.
So,
Nkwocha, thank you so much. I've tried to, because we are running out of time, I want to get to some questions. Mr. Ibrahim, let me ask you, your newspaper wrote that the challenges of continued unity and development are not helped by such distractions like Radio Biafra. Yet, it will not be enough to simply ignore Radio Biafra. Just like Boko Haram, Radio Biafra once again challenges the foundations of justice and equity in the architecture of Nigerian nation. Beyond wielding the stick and simply treating this as a national security issue, it's also important for the government to interrogate the reasons that throws up centrifugal forces that tend to undermine the unity of the country, but make national cohesion and progress impossible. My question is this. This current government has shown no interest in revisiting the national question as articulated in the call for national conference. It has outright rejected any move to consider the recommendations of that last conference. Do you think that the past governments in Nigeria are to blame for some of these challenges?
I think, let me start by making two statements. The first that is Nigeria is a heterogeneous society with strong divisions along ethnic, religious, regional lines. And that has been from the very beginning of our colonial history. My second statement is that precisely because we are conscious of that fact, we chose federalism as a way of carrying everybody along while maintaining essential elements of our differences. I have 30 years of teaching and research as a political science professor and have absolutely no problem with self-determination. People who feel they want to assert their self-determination have a right to do so, but they have to do so using legal means. Just over a year ago, I ran a number of articles on my column about marginalization. And I started with the marginalization of the Yoruba through to that of the Igbos, the Hausa Fulanis, and showed that in each zone, there are strong feelings of dissatisfaction from the Nigerian project, and people feel not enough is being done to make them feel they are belonging to this nation, that inclusive policies do not go far enough. In that context, therefore, the issue of a national conference to address this issue is something that I've always supported. I'm one of those who way back in 1992-93 tried to organize a national conference in Lagos, and the riot police were sent to disperse us. There were serious problems with the way in which President Jonathan organized his national conference. The representation did not show sufficient equity, and that poses problems of legitimacy. My sense is that we need to go back to that discussion on how to build a more inclusive Nigeria so that everybody belongs to this country fully, and that those who feel they do not want to continue to belong can continue to follow legitimate ways of asserting their difference and looking for an alternative path. My quarrel with Radio Biafra is its illegality, its hate speech, and the way in which it is deliberately trying to provoke violent conflict. No group should do that. That's my view.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Igbokwe, in your piece, you outlined 10 reasons why Igbo people are better off in Nigeria. Things like intermarriage, the need for Igbo to have a big nation to operate in, and then the divisions within the Igbo society. But the pro-Biafran groups are saying that all of these reasons were exactly the kind of reasons that were given to the Jews as the reason why they should stay in Hitler's Europe. And we know how that story ended. How do you answer to that?
Well, I'm not saying that everything is fine here. You had Ibrahim, he talked about Yoruba marginalization. The House of Fulani talk about marginalization. The Igbo talk about marginalization. Even the South and the minorities. This is trouble with federalism. We see it in Canada. We see it in US. We see it in other places. Look at Sudan. They voted the way we are asking for now, South Sudan. Today they are fighting. After getting South Sudan, they are fighting. You see, my worry is that we may not have it so smooth, judging from history, for what we are advocating for. But there's nothing wrong with that. Like you said, I share the sentiments of Dr. Nkwocha that we have to have a referendum. That's what I'm asking for. Not by force, not by hate language. Let us do it in a civil way. Let's have a dialogue. Let's debate this matter. Let's see the pros and cons. Let's see whether it's realistic. Let's see whether if we get Biafra, that is going to solve our problem. It's not going to solve our problem. Because I have seen former governor of Abia State throwing out people who are not from Abia State out of Abia Civil Service. When Enugu State was created out of Anambra State, we saw the governor throwing out all the civil servants, all the teachers from Enugu State and Anambra State. Is that the kind of life that we're that kind of life that we're going to see when we see the real Biafra? I think Nigeria provides a big space for Igbo to operate. We must stop this defeatism syndrome. We must stop this, that we are being marginalization, yet we do that great marginalization to ourselves. That's my take. There are about 20 reasons.
Okay.
I just gave 12.
All right, thank you so much.
You cannot build and then run away.
Okay, thank you so much.
And just hand it over tomorrow, you start building again. Let us engage. In 1966, I am told that the idea to go into a war was an idea of either one man or two men. And before we knew it, 1 billion people died.
Okay.
Now this one, we have to sit down face-to-face, dialogue, debate in a peaceful manner. But what I want to say, we must stop the hate speech now.
Okay.
We must stop the dangerous languages they are using, the so-called Radio Biafra or New York Radio. These people are outside. They are creating problem for us in Nigeria.
Thank you so much.
If we want to do this, let's do it as professionals, like learned people.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Igbokwe.
I have to the way things are done.
I have to stop you. They're telling me we are running out of time, but I want to get to a few other questions. Dr. Nkwocha, when Rafa was looking started Masob, he insisted that it must be a non-violent movement. Now, several other leaders of several factions of the Biafran movement, they've moved away from that non-violent position. We had Kano speaking earlier on when we started. Now, last year, Benjamin Omuka, leader of the Biafran Zionist movement, and his followers, they attempted to take over the Enugu State Government House and the radio station in Enugu. Now, my question is this: do you consider some of these aspects of the message of Biafra radio and the agitation, has it gotten to the point where there is a kind of a default to Malcolm X's by any means necessary?
Yeah, I thank you for drawing that analogy. That was exactly what I was going to mention. Now, the working paradigm of Biafra actualization and self-determination is that of nonviolence. Nonviolence does not lead to, violence does not lead to any good. After you get something by violence, it's hard to turn out the violence. So we believe in following the principles of self-determination done non-violently. We've seen those principles at work in different places. But if you don't give people the opportunity to do that, don't blame them when there's violence. I am not condoning violence. I don't have any sympathy for anybody going out there and hurting somebody else that did not do anything to them, or that when they're not defending themselves. So we have never advocated for that. The whole point of leaving Nigeria and determining our own fate is the same type of violence. Violence meted against our people constantly. We don't have any protection from the laws that we don't have protection from anybody. we can't arm ourselves in self-defense. All we're doing is getting exposed to violence and more violence.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nkwocha. Thank you. We're totally out of time, but one last question for each of you. Ibrahim, I want to say this. In 1969, someone said this, and I quote, "The Federation of Nigeria is today as corrupt, as unprogressive, as oppressive, and irreformable as the Ottoman Empire was in Eastern Europe over a century ago. And in contrast, the Nigerian Federation in the form it was constituted by the British cannot by any stretch of imagination be considered an African necessity. Yet, we are being forced to sacrifice our very existence as a people to the integrity of that ramshackle creation that has no justification either in history or in the freely expressed wishes of the people." Has anything changed almost 50 years after that was said?
I think a lot has changed. People should not forget that the structure of the Nigerian Federation today is itself a response to serious demands from Nigerians. Way back in 1958, at the Willings Commission of Inquiry, Nigerian minorities demanded for states for themselves within the Nigerian political system. Over the years, this has been listened to, and the process of state creation from 1967 through to today has been in response to popular demands from Nigerians. At the national conference last year, there were very many demands for states. So people shouldn't view the structure of the Nigerian Federation as some evil that's invented against any specific group. The problem with this discussion is that it's focused on one group, the Igbos, as if they are the only ones with concerns about the structure and process of the Nigerian political system. I made the point earlier, many more people are dissatisfied. The question, however, in all federal systems is that how do you meet those dissatisfaction? How do you respond to questions that people have, and how do you improve this feeling of belonging? I think what is being proposed as irredentism, as breaking off, may not meet the real needs of those people. I think the point has been made earlier that the Igbo people we are talking about are people who spread all over the country and all over the continent, engaged in business. It's very well to say you want to carve out an entity for them alone. By so doing, you are taking a huge risk about their livelihoods and their economic survival. A lot of people who articulate these views do not live the ordinary lives of the typical Igbo human being, and therefore, in their comfort abroad, can sit down and speculate on isolating their people from the wider community. They speak for themselves, they do not speak for their people, and that's what's unfortunate about the debate we are concerned about.
All right, thank you so much. One last question for you, Mr. Igbokwe. In 1995, you wrote a book called Igbos, 25 Years After the War. In your own admission in that book, you said that your expectations that the book will touch the conscience of Nigeria hasn't materialized. But you admitted also that it hasn't happened. So my question is this. In your quiet moments, do you understand to any extent the frustrations of young people like Nnamdi Kanu?
I do, but I know that problems are part of life. If I tell you that there's any ethnic group that is enjoying, let me just put that word enjoying now, I'll be deceiving myself, and the truth is not in me. Democracy is a process. True federalism is a process. As I speak to you, Canada is still battling with the issue of true federalism. And I think our people must learn the power of engagement. Decent engagement, this using of decent language to propagate their ideas or what they believe in. There's nothing wrong in seeking self-determination, but it must be done in a manner not likely to cause a breach of the peace. What I see coming out, the way our people are going about it, using some people who are not literate, especially in Nigeria, to go about this will not help us as a people. I still believe that Nigeria provides a big space for Igbo people to thrive. Let me tell you, the world is still paying attention to Nigeria because of our size and population. If we go into places, very small states, the investors will carry their baggage and go because there's no big population to exploit again. There's no big economy to go to. So I think we must all sit down to make this country work. We have invested a lot in the entity called Nigeria that suggesting an idea of having a separate state is not, I cannot share the same idea, I cannot share the same sentiments. It cannot help people I know. I've been in this country since I was born, I know.
Thank you so much, Mr. Igbokwe. Dr. Nkwocha, just 30 seconds, round up. What's your final thought?
We need self-determination, and each group needs to speak for themselves and decide whether they want to continue with the relationship or not. The assumed dangers, the potential dangers, they're all there. Nation building is not an easy task. But to shirk from the responsibility of doing the right thing now because we think, well, we get in trouble later is not the way to go. And in any case, Nigeria is not safe. Federalism, true federalism has never worked in Nigeria. Nothing has worked in Nigeria because we come here and we pretend that those differences that we have are not strong enough. They are strong enough. Why don't we admit the differences? Why don't we admit that we are different people and then go our own ways only to come back and hold hands if we have to, shake hands in mutual agreement and say, yeah, now we can exist under these terms that are mutually beneficial to everybody. You just can't say, oh, because we want to be big or because this or that, therefore we must all be one. Or say, oh, well, let's do self-determination, but at the end of the day, we want to be one Nigeria, we want to build a better Nigeria. No, the idea of self-determination is you determine what you want for yourself and the other party does. If at the end of the day we see, okay, you know, folks, we really, really need to hold hands, we really, really need to have mutual boundaries, and then we do that. If you're doing that from a position of strength, from a position of mutuality, from a position of fairness and equity, that's really what we're asking about. For.
All right, Dr. Nkwocha, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. I want to thank especially Mr. Ibrahim for joining us from Premium Times. Ibrahim, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
And from APC Lagos State, Mr. Igbokwe, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate you for having me.
And Dr. Nkwocha, thank you so much for joining us from California.
You're welcome. I appreciate being here. Thank you.
All right. So that has been our conversation on Radio Biafra. Of course, we are going to give you a chance to weigh in, our viewers, during our Skype calls and during our phone segment. Stay tuned. There will be more. We have an exclusive interview with coming up with Laolu Akonde, who is the spokesman for the Vice President of Nigeria. Also, we spoke to Senator Dino Melaye. So stay tuned. There are more coming up.